गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः श्रीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभं च शनीनां विश्वरूपमदाभ्यं बृहस्पतिं वरेण्यम् ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवीव चक्षुराततम्। ॐ श्रीमहालक्ष्म्यै नमः। ॐ श्लीं ह्रीं ज्योतिर्ब्राह्माय नमः। ॐ हरे रामकृष्ण हरे रामकृष्ण हरे रामकृष्ण हरे रामकृष्ण। Welcome back after the long holiday. So where are we now? Actually, what I wanted to do was, after the conference, I wanted to just spend a couple of classes, or at least one class on just Drugdasha. So we'll do Drugdasha in this class. Some examples of Drugdasha. Any examples that you have or your own chart, we can take as examples. And also any examples that I could not do wanted to do but could not do the conference. So we'll do Drugdasha. So just to, yeah. Okay. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah.
2 weeks back I sent a list to somebody, but for some reason they seem to adhere to that. Not saying they should, but they couldn't. Okay. So I wanted to know what priority, why did I miss this? The second muhurta for a group is on September 21st or 23rd, where if all the 5 Panchanga elements match very well, including everybody, everything is very good.
Yeah.
And the Sarabala is good for both and the Chandrabala is good for both of them. And the only thing that doesn't match is the Bhadapada Masam has come and the Shuni Masam was there, so the Masam is what is not matching.
That's right. Okay.
So I gave the least priority to that because everything is matched, including the at the Muhurta time 6 and 8 houses are empty and everything else is good.
Okay.
6, 8 houses, everybody is good.
Okay.
So, but they talked to somebody in India, they said, hey, Bhagavatam systems are don't bother. So they went and did on 7th. But 7th was their Sarabala itself was not good. The Chandrabala was not good. So what did I miss? Should we give priority to...
First, let me say one thing. You may not have missed anything. They just may have missed an opportunity to do in a good muhurta. You never know. Second thing is, there is this misconception among some people that there is this term called muhurta balam, which means if somebody really decides a good muhurta, the thing basically happens at that muhurta. Nobody can stop it. Whereas if the muhurta itself is weak, the person cannot use that muhurta. There is this misconception. But the thing is, I don't agree with that. If you select a good muhurta, even if if the muhurta itself is weak, there is a conception. Some people say, well, there were so many obstacles, but because the priest has selected such a good muhurta, everything fell in place and I could actually do the thing, start the thing at that muhurta. So some people talk like that. So there is this conception that if somebody could not start something at the predestined muhurta selected by an astrologer, it's basically somehow basically a weakness in the muhurta chosen by the astrologer. But that is not necessarily true. If the If the time when you actually selected the muhurta, the time when you were looking at the charts of the people and then analyzing everything and then selected the muhurta, if there is a weakness in that time, not the muhurta chosen, but the time when you chose the muhurta, then that may translate into this muhurta not being executed. You see what I am saying? So the muhurta that you have selected is a point in time which is auspicious for going forward. But whether somebody can do actually at that time or not depends on their luck, their dashas and gochara right now. If the person is running a really terrible time, even if you give a very good advice, they may not be destined to get that advice. But in that case, what I will say is, apart from the chart of the person indicating that they should not do at a good muhurta or do at that muhurta, the time when you actually sat down to select the muhurta also probably had a weakness. There were probably some weakness in the lagna, in the 11th house, in the 10th house, etc. of that chart, which basically made the muhurta selected at that such a time basically useless to the person that you wanted to help. So that is point number one. So don't think that you made mistake. Now second, yeah.
Mistake, I want to know basically how much priority we should
I understood your question. I'll come to that. But before that, I wanted to address this point because there is this clear misconception among a lot of people, especially in where I come from, in Andhra Pradesh. And so, if a muhurta could not be used, it doesn't really mean muhurta was good or bad. If a muhurta was used, if a muhurta actually had a big weakness, but still there is a gravity that is pulling that person towards that muhurta. If the destiny becomes a gravity pulling the person towards the bad muhurta chosen by a bad astrologer, then he may surmount all obstacles and actually do it at that time and then suffer the consequences of it. So it's not really like muhurta being good or bad is judged based on whether it was actually executed or not. You judge whether a muhurta was good or bad based on what happens after the muhurta. If the person really starts the thing at that muhurta and how things unfold after that, that is basically the power of the muhurta. Now second thing, you basically judged all the factors, you juggled all the factors that are needed, and then you drew your conclusion. And obviously the gentleman who advised them in India, he had a totally different set of priorities. And I see that all the time too. I see people who think that a particular factor, this being a particular tithi, or this being a particular nakshatra, or this being a particular masa, lunar month, is such a big deal that you just cannot do anything in that muhurta, and then they go for some really stupid muhurta. I see that all the time. That happens in muhurta selected by professional priests in India, who are not really much of astrologers, but they just know some thumb rules. Yeah, they just go by Panchanga thumb rules. I know one very popular Shastriji who selected a muhurta. My father saw the muhurta and immediately said, what nonsensical muhurta is it? This is a terrible muhurta for marriage. And then he thought that, of course, they didn't ask my father to set a muhurta, but it was some relatives. So when they showed the Subhalaga, my father just looked at the chart and said, who said this? And then they said, so-and-so Shastri in Hyderabad. He's very, very well known. He's from Godavari district and he's extremely well known and popular there. But obviously he's not an astrologer, he's just a priest. So he just went by thumb rules. And actually that particular marriage, it happened, but within 1 year there were a lot of big problems. And until the marriage, this gentleman, the bridegroom, was a very successful businessman who had a business which was doing 50 lakh turnover every year. And he was in a very good position, he could help so many people. And now he is actually literally begging all his relatives for livelihood. So his business went down. His wife basically proved so unlucky. His marriage proved so unlucky. He's in all kinds of trouble. And it started within 1 year from the marriage. In like 6 months from the marriage, all the trouble started. His downfall in life. So if you do something something important like marriage at a bad muhurta, you will see the effect of it in the coming year or coming years.
only one component. So the chart may be bad too.
Oh yeah, of course. Chart may be bad too, and it has basically been exacerbated by the fact that somebody chose a really bad muhurta. Otherwise, maybe things could have been slightly better. But what I am saying is, for such a person, actually, if he came to you for for a good marriage muhurta, if he wasn't destined to get married in a good time, and he was destined to have a terrible marital life and also have failure after marriage, even if you gave a really good muhurta, probably the destiny will become a gravity that pulls him away from that muhurta. So probably he would go to some priest like this person. He would give a different muhurta, and he will definitely junk your muhurta and use that muhurta. So you should give a muhurta when somebody asks, but after that, why they didn't use is not your business. Now, coming to the specific point of whether Bhadrapada Masa things can be done in Bhadrapada Masa, typically you don't do things in Bhadrapada Masa. It is not considered an auspicious month for doing things, but if you are doing a different month, an auspicious month like Shravan Masa for example, and a terrible tithi with terrible nakshatra bala in a terrible lagna, instead it is better to do in that Masa. That is one of the factors. It is not a major factor, but it is one of the standard factors. No, what I am saying is it is one of the standard factors to avoid that month. Yeah. And the month that is running right now, Shravan Masa, of course, which is ending in a few hours, this is a very auspicious month. It is basically Shiva's month. So this month is auspicious to do various activities. The thing is, when other things are, when it is possible, basically, suppose somebody has 2-3 months time and they are not in a hurry, you can wait. You can do it in the next month.
For wedding,
Something like wedding or something that can wait. If for example, they want to do, let's say, Upanayanam, then you better, because there is no hurry. You can wait for a couple of months if need be. So you can basically give a muhurta after another month or two. But if this is something that has to be done in the next month, and you just have to adjust and to give a good month, if you have to pick one of the 7 or 8 days that are left in Shravana Masa, and then you don't really find a good tithi and nakshatra combination, then it's not worth it. Then go to Bhadrapada Masa and make sure that tithi, nakshatra, etc. are good. Because those are also important. Those are probably more important than the
what
month.
is the priority out of this?
In my judgment, see, you can even say year. Basically, this year is a bad year to do things because Jupiter is, let's say, in Nita this year. So don't do anything during this year. It is possible to have that kind of thumb rules also. There are that kind of thumb rules. You avoid a whole year basically because it's an auspicious year. So where you avoid an entire year as being bad, obviously that has to be the lowest priority. And where you avoid an entire month as an inauspicious month has to be next lower. And so think like that basically. So it's not really a major factor. Tithi and nakshatra are definitely more important. Tithi and nakshatra are the most important. Of course, if you ask me, the lagna and the planetary portion is the most important. And then tithi and nakshatra, tithi bala and nakshatra bala are the next important. And then other panchanga elements, karana, vara, yoga, those are important. And then all other factors. So I haven't seen that muhurta that you have given, but probably you have given a good muhurta. If you looked at all the other factors, probably you didn't do a bad job. Just that they went to somebody who puts too much importance on that factor. So just ignore it. So where is Srinivas chart? Just scroll. Yeah, we'll connect. Oh, sorry. Oh, you went to the railway station to pick him up?
Call me and then, because sir, I am on the way. I want to tell you that I'm not coming.
Yeah, it will be too far for him to come. North Carolina to Boston.
Actually, usually I get a call at 5 6 o'clock and
I-
I'm coming and not like in station.
So he called at the same time.
Sorry to tease you, huh? He thought that I would go to the station and I said I'm already.
ఉందండి ఎస్క్రోవి ఫ్యామిలీలో ఉండదా?
ఫ్యామిలీలో లేదు, అదర్ రీడింగ్స్ ఉంటాయి.
అదర్ రీడింగ్స్ మీరు రీడింగ్స్ ఇచ్చారా ఆయనకి?
ఏమండి ఆయనకి ఇచ్చింది కదా, దాంట్లో క్లాస్ రీడింగ్స్
క్లాస్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ లో ఉన్నాయి.
ఉండొచ్చు. రెండే చదివి
క్రోవి ఎస్క్రోవి ఎస్
ఉంది కదా.
శ్రీనిక్రోవి ఎస్క్రోవి రెండు ఉన్నాయి. ఆర్ దే ప్రాబ్లీ ద సేమ్ రైట్? ఎస్క్రోవి 1955 September 1 7:30 5:30 PM మచిలీపట్నం మా బందరాయన. ఇది ఈ మధ్య వాడలేదు. ఒకసారి మానిటర్ ప్రాబ్లం వస్తే కంప్యూటర్ మానిటర్ కనెక్ట్ కావట్లేదు అనమాట. ఏదో వేరే మోడ్లోకి వెళ్ళింది. ఇది పెట్టి చూశాను ఒక 2 weeks బ్యాక్, 3 weeks బ్యాక్. అప్పుడు ఇక్కడ ఉంటుంది స్క్రీన్ చేసుకుంది. అచ్చా అచ్చా ఐ థింక్ నౌ ఇట్ లుక్స్ గుడ్. We'll start. 7,000 BPH. కొంచెం ఫోకస్ చేయాలండి. నేను చేస్తానండి. అయ్యో వచ్చినారు పాడు చేస్తాను. అంతే అంటారా? వస్తాను మళ్ళీ. చాలా ఇంకా కబుల్సాను. Okay, so we want to see the chart of Srinivas Krovi, who recently relocated to North Carolina. He put his house on sale and he hasn't been able to sell it yet. So we want to see when he may be able to sell his house.
Actually, we did that chart roughly at your house when we came for Puja.
Oh, you did? Okay.
For
the Satyanarayana.
We three of us just
Okay.
roughly gave.
Yeah.
We looked at it from the point of view of not from his chart, but from the Prashna chart, from the time when he asked.
I see. So what was your conclusion? With Prashna, timing exactly will be very difficult. You can only get like very soon or very there will be delay.
Within 3 months.
You guys said within 3 months.
it
Okay.
happened.
Okay. We'll see based on his chart now. Chart Prashna. Okay. So what is the dasha applicable in his case? The data is 1955 September 1 5:30 PM Indian Standard Time, Machilipatnam, India, 81 degrees 8 minutes east, 16 degrees 10 minutes north. Yes. Okay, so what is the dasha he is running right now? He is running Shani Mahadasha, right? He is running Saturn Mahadasha, and the Antardasha is Jupiter. So he is running Saturn, Jupiter, Antardasha. And let us go to Prachantar Dasha. The Prachantar Dasha that he is running is right now Saturn until October 15. And after October 15 he will be running Mercury Prachantar Dasha. So is there a chance that he will sell his house in Saturn Prachantar Dasha or Mercury Prachantar Dasha? Let us see. Let us go to D4. You are getting different dates? Sunrise doesn't matter for this. You are using Lahi Ainamsha? Oh, you are using the latest software. He is using still older.
No, I have both there.
You have both. I'll use the new then. Where is it? Oh, Jehoraz 7.05. Okay. Ainamsa is this.
Why will for this calculation, why will it differ between old and new?
No, Ainamsa itself is slightly different. Like I said earlier, the new version that I gave you has, in that the default is Lahida Ainamsa with a fixed plane instead of an oscillating plane of reference. Apart from the reference point, the 0 degree point for the Ainamsa, I told you earlier that the plane onto which you project the planets, the plane basically oscillates with time in normal Lahiri. But here I take the average plane basically, which does not oscillate, it's a fixed plane. So the projections will be slightly different. So the longitudes of all the planets will be slightly different. And they don't change by the same amount. Like when you change one Ainamsa to another, all the planetary longitudes they change by exactly the same angle, right? Here they all change by different angles. So moon's longitude changes a little bit.
So this is in terms of our the timing, not the timing, basically timing.
It changes everything basically. Vimshottari Dasha dates can be a little off. Even in Sthiti Pravesha time can be off by anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. So it changes a lot of things. Okay. Okay, that's good. Now let us open the same chart again using this software. 2007.
Will go up as you listen to the audio. Somebody wants to listen to the audio and draw the chart.
Yeah.
You will not have the software.
Right. But chart will almost basically be the same. Right now what we are discussing will be the same. So he is running Saturn Jupiter right now, and until November 3. Until November 3 it is, instead of October 15 it is November 3. See that difference. So Saturn is running right now, and Mercury will start on November 3rd. So how is Saturn under this Prachanda Disha and how is Mercury Prachanda Disha?
D4.
Let us go to D4. And in D4 the Lagna is Aquarius. Okay. Pardon me? Yeah. Saturn is the strongest candidate. Why? Okay, you are already going to A4. Okay. Okay.
So even Rasi also strong, right? Saturn is in Libra.
Yeah. Saturn is a strong planet, but the thing is, this only means Saturn is basically a strong planet. He is Lagna Lord. He is in Bhagya. He is exalted in Bhagya. He is in Badhakasthana. He can show fortune. He can show moving to a different place. All those things. But when it comes to selling the house, you look at A4 and D4. Right? So in D4, A4 is in Leo. It contains Rahu. So from A4, Saturn is in the 12th house. That already shows exactly. So he already basically had a change of residence.
Mercury is 11th lord, so from A4 to see 11, that is the gains, right?
Okay, we will take it one step at a time. First let us see Saturn. So in Saturn, he is in the 12th from A4, which can show some instability with respect to A4. Some change in the residence, some giving up of a residence. 12th house is giving up. It can be selling or also just leaving something. So he left the house here. He is in a different place now. He is living in North Carolina now. So Saturn's result may already have been given. It does not necessarily mean he will be selling the house. What will happen when he sells this house? He sells the house and he makes a gain, a financial gain as a result of selling this house. He gives up this house. Already he gave up the house from the point of view of living in it. But when he actually succeeds in selling the house, he has given up the house and also gained because of it, right? And now A11 is there. A11 is in the same sign as A4. So A4 and A11 being together can show some gain, tangible gain as a result of some dealing with the house. But the thing is, Saturn is in the 12th from that 11. So can he give that gain? It's not too likely. It's not very likely that Saturn will give a gain because of the house. On the other hand, look at Mercury. How is Mercury placed? Mercury is in the second house from A4, second house of Marakasthana. So basically,
From Lagna.
pardon me?
8 from Lagna.
He is in the 8th from Lagna. So what does it mean? It can mean a sudden gain. It can mean a suddenly getting a windfall, suddenly getting a lot of money. So being in the 8th house, and also he is a benefic, he is a functional benefic. He is the 5th lord and 8th lord.
The aspect of suddenness we got it from Krishna also.
Okay, they got from Prasna also. That's interesting. So here Mercury shows something sudden, some auspicious thing. He is exalted in one sign, in the 8th house. He gives Sarala Yoga. So the thing is, it is likely that he will suddenly give a good happening relating to residence. And from A4, he is in the second house of Marakasthana, and also he is in the second house of feeding, basically. So A4 and A11, he can give a gain on account of house. He is a functional benefit having Argala on the A11. So he can give a gain on account of selling the house. So basically getting the money from the bank. So he can give that result. So my feeling is, looking just at the Vimshodri Dasha, more than Saturn, Mercury seems more conducive. Let us see if Narayan Dasha gives any clues. Let us go to...
What does the 4th lord in Lagna combust mean?
It can mean a lot of things, but let us not go there, because that is a factor that is there in the Vimshodri Dasha, I mean in the natal chart itself, and the corresponding Vimshodri Dasha is not running. So it doesn't really matter that much now. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, let's go to D4 Narayan Dasha. So what is the Dasha running right now? Pisces. What is the 1/3 running? The last 1/3. The middle will give the result of the sign, and the Lord Jupiter is in a Prishthodaya Rasi, Aries. So Jupiter's results will be given in the last 1/4. So last 1/3. So from December 2006 till September 2010, these 4 years, not exactly 4 actually, 3 years, 3 and 3/4. 3 year and 3/4, this will give the result of Jupiter. Right? So right now the results of Jupiter are being given. Can Jupiter give? Actually, let us go further. Let us divide Jupiter's period into 4 quarters. The first quarter will give the result of the house where he is, which is running till December 1st. And then the next quarter will give the result of the houses owned by him. Right? Second is the houses owned by him. Then yogas, and finally his exaltation, his avastha. So right now he gives the result of being in the 3rd house. What does 3rd house show? Third is, in one way, it is the 12th from 4th house. So it can show giving up a house. It is basically loss of the house. But the thing is, you could argue that doesn't necessarily mean selling the house and making money on it. It could mean just moving away from the house, which already happened. Right? So it is conceivable that the result of Jupiter, which is to be given until December 1, is already given. In which case, the second quarter of the last 1/3, which is from December 1 till November 1 next year. December 1 this year till November 1 next year. That result, that is the result of 2nd and 11th Lord, Jupiter being the 2nd and 11th Lord. Can the Lord of the 2nd and 11th houses in D4 give some money, some gains on account of selling a house? Chances are strong. So the thing is, getting the money by selling the house, by executing the deed, is executing the sale, is likely in the second quarter of the last 1/3 of Pisces Dasha, which is between December 1, 2007 to November 1, 2008. So it seems like it may take a few more months based on this, and based on Vimshotri we said November, after November 3 or something, give or take 10 days. Now let us go to Tithi Pravesh, because that has the last say in this kind of matters. Because we are seeing interesting signals only in the next year meaning, actually his birthday is over anyway, I think. So instead of 2006 chart, let us look at 2007 chart. So August 27, 2007, that is when the new year started. Oh, okay, recently. Okay, how is this year? He was born on a Purnima? Oh, Father was a Purnima. I see, interesting. Okay, so his Tithi Pravesh chart is cast on August 27, 2007 at 9:31:18 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Machilipatnam, India. If you are getting a slightly different time instead of 9:31:18 p.m., it's because you are using a slightly different Ainamsha. So, if you look at this chart, the Chaturtham, who is the Hora Lord? Who is the ruler of the year? Saturn. Shani is the ruler of the year, and the D4 Lagna is in Cancer. And what are the Dashas running? The Dasha of Saturn is running till September 26, and then the Dasha of Jupiter will run till December 2nd, and then Rahu Dasha will come. It will run at the end of December and January, and then Venus. So let us look at Jupiter, Rahu and Venus. These three let us focus, and let us see which has a higher chance of succeeding in selling the house. Okay? Now, where is A4? A4 is in Lagna. A4 is in Cancer. And where is A11? A11 is in Pisces. Okay. In Jupiter Dasha, is there a chance of selling the house? Jupiter is the Lord of A11 and Lord of A7. A7 means, A7 shows interactions with others, etc. Which could basically mean putting the house on sale and dealing with the agent, etc., dealing with the potential buyers, etc. So A11 and A7 are together, and the Lord is Jupiter, and he is in the 11th house from Lagna, and he is in A8. What does A8 show?
In 9th from
11th from Lagna in D4. Even in Rashi, he is not 11th, 9th. He is in 8th. Okay. Now this Jupiter is in A8. A8 is basically the Arudha of the 8th house, which shows some sudden development. For me? He is with the 8th Lord Rahu, who shows suddenness. So can Jupiter show selling the house? Perhaps. But in the Rashi chart, if you see, apart from D4, if you look at Rashi chart, overall life, Jupiter is the 9th and 12th Lord in the 8th house. He is in A11. He is in A11. A11 shows some gain, not necessarily by selling the house, but some gain. And it is in the 8th house of suddenness. And he is a functional benefit. So when a functional benefit is in the 8th house of suddenness, in A11, he can give some sudden gain. Right? And in D4 also he is the 9th Lord, in the 11th house of gains. So he can definitely give gains. Now, let us look at Rahu, the next guy. Rahu is, in the Rashi chart, he is in the 11th house, in A8, own house. 11th Lord in 11th house in own house is very auspicious for gains. It shows the fulfillment of the desire, the final fructification of something. That is what 11th house stands for. For me? Yeah, he's a malefic in Upsala in one house. So he's very strong. He shows some clear gain, overall gain in life. And in Chaturthamsa, he is the 8th lord of suddenness, and he is in the 11th house of gains, and he is in J8, which shows some tangible event. And he has Argala on 11, right? He has the 11th house Argala on 11. While Jupiter is obstructing Argala on his own sign, Rahu is actually causing Argala on 11. So as the planet causing Argala, as a planet who is causing Argala on 11, he can give. See, Rahu, Ketu and Venus, these are the ones who are causing Argala. There are 3 planets causing Argala and 2 planets basically obstructing Argala. It's a weak Argala, but the planets causing Argala can give that result. So having an Argala on 11, he can basically give some gain relating to property. So Rahu is a very strong candidate. But the thing is Jupiter really impossible? Is it impossible that this will happen in Jupiter Dasha? We have already seen the reasons. Jupiter is also a potential candidate. So my guess is, right. So my guess is he may find a buyer. Something may come up suddenly towards the end of Jupiter Dasha. That is my guess. My guess is that it may happen because Jupiter is in the Rashi chart, being the 9th and 12th lord, in the 8th house in 11, he has to give some gain, some tangible gain basically. He has to give something sudden which makes him happy. So my feeling is probably something will come up towards the end of Jupiter Mahadasha. Maybe in Jupiter. So something will happen at the end of Jupiter Dasha in the second half of November. Somebody will basically be interested in the house and somebody will come, and then the actual signing of everything and actual getting the money, etc., the final certification, which is the 11th house, that will probably happen in the Rahu Dasha after now December 2. So my feeling is November second half and December first 2-3 weeks before Christmas. I think that is basically the period that I'm hopeful of. So you can convey this to Srinivas. Okay.
Generally, the 8th and 9th are only they have similar agenda, but they don't go along.
It's not similar agenda, they are different things. But the thing is, 8th lord in 9th is different from 9th lord in 8th. Being the 9th lord, his agenda is auspicious. And being in the 8th house, he will bring out the good of the 8th house, which is sudden good. 8th house can also show sudden good, right? Yes, in the Chaturthamsa there is a Guru Chandala Yoga. That is not so auspicious. We will say that, but one thing is he may have to basically, when there is both the planets who are likely to give this result, Guru and Rahu, are taking part in an inauspicious yoga in the D4. So the thing is, there will be some inauspiciousness relating to this sale, which means he may have to compromise. He may be selling for a very small price.
But when you see good gains, how will that go?
Well, whether you suppose your house is 400k, pardon me? Yeah, he may not be satisfied basically. This shows unhappiness. Guru Chandala literally means killing somebody, but it doesn't have to be killing somebody. It's basically killing of the spirit within you. You feel dispirited, even though you are able to sell. But the thing is, if you are expecting 400k for a house, suppose, just hypothetically, and you get only 380k, you are very unhappy. But the thing is, it is a gain. It is not a loss. You are still getting some money. So A11 and all those things basically, all those things make sense. But the thing is, he is not very happy. So my feeling is Jupiter Rahu combination shows some compromise and some unhappiness, some loss of spirit, even though there is a gain being made. And most likely this will happen suddenly. The buyer will come very suddenly.
That point also we had in question.
Okay.
That is what is that they said there will be some kind of compromise they will make, and
Yeah.
it will happen suddenly.
Those 2 hours.
I see.
And will happen in next 3-4 months.
Okay.
There was July, right?
That was July. That was 3-4 months.
Yeah, 3-4 months.
before plus minus 3 to 3.
We don't know from when.
We didn't have a computer there.
Oh,
We did without
mentally. Oh, that's very interesting. So you guys did a mental prashna.
Right, because
Wow.
we knew the transits at the time.
I see. You guys are good. I'm impressed. Okay, that's good. So you guys are no more like computer engineers who are doing astrology using computers. You are like people at sadhus and rishis at ashramas who just do mentally and then give
4
predictions.
minds are collected together.
Good. Okay. So all the best to him. All the best. And who can he pray to?
Durga.
The Rahu is really auspicious from the point of view of gains. And in the natal chart, which dasha did we see? We saw Mercury dasha. We thought Mercury may bring the event. So the thing is, you want to propitiate Mercury for the upcoming Prachanta dasha, and also Rahu based on this. So my suggestion is just pray to Venkateshwara. Just pray to Balaji. Mercury for some Vishnu Avatara, and I just get Rahu from the Tripravesh chart here. So pray to Balaji. And also he is running Saturn. He is running the Saturn dasha. So pray to Venkateshwara. So pray to Venkateshwara on Saturdays for the quick sale of this house. And in today's market, if you can sell in a few months also, that is like a quick sale. The market has really slowed down very badly. So all the best to him. My feeling is before the end of this year he will sell, and hopefully in November December time frame sudden activity will come up. Okay, so we will move on to Durgasha. Is there any other chart that you want to see?
She has a chart.
Yeah.
Birthday to December 4,
1 second. December 4,
1958,
1958,
1315,
1:15 p.m.
Nagpur.
1 second, let me write that 1:15. Okay, Nagpur, India. How many Nagpurs? I'm sure there are many Nagpurs. So we need the one that is, the first one is the right one. This is Nagpur in Maharashtra, right? The big city. Okay.
There are other Nagpurs in India?
Nagpur is a very nice name. Obviously, you would expect a lot of Nagpurs to be, but they are not all so well known. Okay. Okay. So what about this chart?
She actually wants to change her career.
She wants to change her career. Okay.
She has been a finance director for so many years.
Okay. 1 second. She has been a finance director. Director for
20 years.
many years, 20. Okay. Wants to change. And what does he want? What does she want?
Recently she developed interest in occult.
Developed interest in occult. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Astrology, Reiki, etc. Okay.
Whether she can
So she wants to get into this.
resign her job.
She wants to,
Resign her job.
yeah, and get into these things.
Reiki healing as a full-time.
Get into full-time Reiki. Okay. So she wants. So the data again is. The data is December 4, 1958, 1:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Nagpur, India. 75 degrees 25 minutes east, 29 degrees 39 minutes north. So this lady, she has been a finance director for almost 20 years, and she wants to change her career. She developed interest in occult subjects like astrology and Reiki, and 2 years back she learned Reiki, and now she wants to resign her job and get into Reiki healing full time. Let us see. So you want basically the advice of the class. Okay. So we want to see whether that is a good idea. So what is the dasha that is applicable in this case? The regular Vimshottari is the dasha, right? Lagna and Rasi will change 4 minutes 15 seconds later, or 1 hour 22 minutes earlier. But if you look at Dashamsha, it will be like 4 minutes this way, 5 minutes that way, like that. Yeah, 4 minutes 4 seconds earlier or 4 minutes 15 seconds later it will change. So we have a leeway of 4 minutes in both the directions. Now we know a little bit about her career, so we can use that information. November 1981 got married. Okay, let us just quickly look at that event. November 1981. Does it make sense that she got married? What is the dasha for her? We said Vimshottari, right? 81. She was at the end of Vimshottari dasha. So moon dasha, either Venus or Sun antar dasha. November 81 means. So moon dasha, can it give marriage? Moon Sun, Moon Venus. Yeah. Sun is the UL Lord in the 7th house. Sun makes excellent sense. Excellent sense. But Moon, does it really make sense? In the 6th Lord, but in the 7th house. Okay. The thing is, he's not really a strong candidate, but at least he's in the 5th house of Purva Punya. So, I mean, compared to the next dasha, that would be Mars dasha. Of course, Sun dasha came too early. So, Sun dasha, she didn't get married. And Mars dasha, Mars is the 6th and 11th Lord. Compared to him, definitely Moon has a better chance of giving marriage. He's in the 9th house from Venus. He's in a trine from both Venus and Lagna. So let us say, let us instead of questioning Moon, let us basically accept that the Antardasha of Sun makes excellent sense, being the UL Lord in the 7th house. So probably the Lagna is right. So let us basically. Okay, she said that even based on Narayan Dasha, this makes sense. And we have pretty much the same window for the Navamsha. Actually, for Navamsha, the window is a little earlier. So that's the only thing. So let us say that the time is basically accurate. Let us move on. And let us also look at Dashamsha. Let us see if her current career makes sense. So she is, for the last 20 years, she has been in this career. Let us not look at Dasha. Let us just look at the chart itself, because it's been such a long career in one area. You said finance director, right? So she has been in the financial area. Does it make any sense? Being directing or being managing the finances, does it make any sense? Okay, excellent point. So instead of just looking at the 10th house for work, she is looking at the 2nd house, because you can judge the career from any of the Artha Trikona, 2nd, 6th and 10th, whichever is stronger. 6th house being strong basically means the career of the person is judged based on the effort that he is always putting in. 10th house is, if the 10th house is strong, it means the career is judged based on the accomplishments of the person. If the 2nd house is strong, career is judged based on the resources of the person. So any of them can define the career of the person depending on what kind of person he is or she is. So here 2nd house is extremely strong, and 2nd house contains Mercury, Mars and Saturn. So Mercury and Mars in the 2nd house can show financial career. And there is a Parivartana between Jupiter and Mercury, the 2nd Lord and 8th Lord. So the Mercury himself shows accounting.
Mars can show financial.
Pardon me?
Mars can show. Mars is the 6th Lord.
Mars is not really finances, he can show engineering. But the thing is, Mercury is a planet of math, accounting, etc. And Jupiter is the planet of money, handling money. So Mercury-Jupiter combination. Well, Mars by himself is not a planet of finances, but when Mars is with Mercury, Mars-Mercury combination is known to produce good wealth and also produce a career that deals with lot of wealth. The specific combination. So Mars by himself, I completely agree. He would have shown a mechanical engineer or something like that. But here, Saturn is not really that strong there. It's basically Mercury, Jupiter and Mars, the Lagna Lord Mars. So that combination, it can show somebody.
You said would show more like an engineering or something.
Pardon me?
Mars Mercury can show an engineering.
No, I said Mars alone would have shown engineering, but Mars Mercury can show a financial career. And here anyway Jupiter is involved. He is aspecting those guys. He owns the sign, he is aspecting, he is in Parivartana. So it's definitely financial management is definitely a possibility, a strong possibility.
And also because of the Mars is the length of employment is longer.
Pardon me?
Mars
Doesn't necessarily give you a long employment. Whereas Saturn can show. Saturn and Jupiter, they can show long employment. So the Saturn Jupiter combination on the second house here, that could show. If you look at A10 as Lagna, A10 contains Jupiter, is being aspected by Saturn. So all those could show a long employment. But the bottom line is things are making decent sense, and she wants a change now. Well, director, why is she in a high position? Is there any Raj Yoga for me? Aruh Lagna has Sun, even though he is eclipsed, okay. But Sun, 10th Lord Sun in Aruh Lagna in an Upachaya. Being a natural malefic in Upachaya, Sun is strong. 10th Lord in third house in AL, it can show a strong position. Apart from it, if you look at the strongest planet in the second house, who is the strongest planet in the second house? Mars. And then Mercury. Because Mercury is involved in Parivartana with the Lord of that house. If you look at them, Mars is in Brahmamsa, but Mercury is in Indramsa. Saturn is also in Indramsa. So two planets are in Indramsa in the second house, in Akshatrikona, right? And planets in Indramsa, they show somebody in a powerful position. And basically the two planets, Mars and Jupiter, are in Brahmamsa, other two are in Indramsa. So Brahma and Indra. Brahma shows digging into details, research, etc. And Indra shows power. So she is somebody who micromanages, who basically has to go into a lot of details, has to do a lot of studies, keep herself abreast of various developments, various knowledge. Even though she is not really a scientist, as far as financial management is concerned, she is probably one of those types who reads new laws, new tax codes, reads this, reads that kind of literature. So that is basically Brahma's influence, and somebody who's in a very powerful position, that is Indra's influence. So that is basically the snapshot. And moreover, there is a Raj Yoga here. Mars and Jupiter are involved in a Raj Yoga. Are they or aren't they? What Raj Yoga? Lagna Lord and 5th Lord. Lagna Lord Jupiter and Mars and 5th Lord Jupiter are in mutual Samsaptaka, mutual 7th house. So that is auspicious, right? Okay.
Actually, in the case of Amsha, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the planets in the 10th house, Dashamsha, usually we see the 10th lord.
Oh yeah, you can look at 10th Lord also. So who's the 10th Lord?
Venus and Sun.
10th house contains Venus and Sun, but the thing is 10th Lord is Mars. So 10th Lord Mars, of course, the Ketu is also the 10th Lord, but Mars is stronger. So we'll just look at Mars. So Mars is in Brahmamsa, and he's taking part in Raj Yoga. So that can also explain it. But apart from the 10th Lord of Rasi chart, you can also look at any strong yogas if there are there in the Dashamsa. You can look at the Amsha ruler of those planets also. So here Brahmamsa and Indramsa are dominating. So her current career makes sense, but the thing is, why is she thinking of a change in career right now? She started recently Jupiter Dasha. Jupiter is a benefic who gives money, following, etc., second and fifth lord. But He is in the 8th house. For me? He is in the 8th house of occult, also 8th house of change.
And with 8 then.
And he is the Lord of 8. So there is, all this thought about change, etc. is not. But in the same financial area. So actually Jupiter already gave a change, being the 8th Lord, being in the 8th house, etc. For me?
And associating with 8.
Associating with 8th. So he, being the 8th Lord associating with 8th, he already gave a change in job. But she wants to do something else. Now let us look at the Narayan Dasha for further clarity. What is the Narayan Dasha of Dashamsa? Leo. And Leo, which 1/3 is running? Still first 1/3 is running. Leo is a Shishodaya Rasi. It will give its own result, right? So this is the Dasha of the 10th house is basically running. So this is actually an important time in the career. So we don't really have any clarity from the point of view of whether occult career is possible or not from this. But the fact that Jupiter Dasha is running, and Jupiter basically shows a priest, a consultant. So being associated with the 8th house and the 8th, it could show an occult cure basically, a Reiki healer kind of person. It could show. But there has to be a link with Moon. Basically Moon is the healer. Where is Moon? Moon and exalted Venus are in 5th house. They are in A8. And Jupiter is being aspected by them. So there is a chance of being a full-time healer. But the thing is, what we should be concerned about as astrologers is this going to be a suicidal move for her career? But the thing is, it doesn't really seem like that. 8th house can show disturbances, changes, instability, but his agenda is auspicious. He is the second and 5th Lord. So he is a functional benefit. So his dasha cannot be disastrous for the career. So it seems positive. Let us look at the Tithi Pravesh chart of the current year. If you look at the 2006-2007 year's Tithi Pravesh chart, what is the dasha? Who is the ruler of the year? Yeah, after we'll wrap up this chart and then we'll restart. It's almost an hour anyway, exactly. Jupiter is the Hora Lord. And how is this year? So right now Jupiter Dasha is running. So Hora Lord is Jupiter. He is the Lagna Lord. Lagna shows a new beginning. He is with Mars and Rahu. That can show Mars and Rahu are also planets of occult. Mars is the 12th Lord. Rahu is the Karaka for occult. So, and Jupiter has Argana on the 8th house. And Jupiter is the A8 Lord again, just like in the Rasi chart, natal Dashamsa chart. He is the Lord of A8. So all these basically do show during this year, because Jupiter is the Lagna Lord and Hora Lord for this year. During this year, thinking about occult, etc., does make sense. So without going through further analysis, my advice is this is not a bad idea for her.
And the aspect from Moon.
Yeah, he has aspect from Moon. So this is not a bad idea. Being a full-time Reiki healer is a good idea, and they can be success in the long run. Okay. Any other charts? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. She has some psychic, clairvoyant, psychic abilities. Yeah. Okay. So while curing people of their diseases using Reiki, sometimes she has visions of how they got a particular disease, and many times she says that she was accurate actually, and she can visualize the chakras of the people and how they got the disease, etc. Where is this psychic visualization coming from? Yeah, we have to look at Vimshamsa. The Shamsa is how she is putting her skills to use for the society. And of course, Jupiter is basically, Jupiter can give all kinds of abilities. But let us look at Vimshamsa. That is the real chart, if you want to see psychic abilities. Okay. How is the Vimshamsa? 6 seconds later, the chart will change. So now Vimshamsa, we have to make up our mind on whether the Lagna is Gemini or Cancer. Okay?
From the fact of the psychic thing,
Yeah.
Cancer will make more sense
Why?
because moon is off.
Okay. Okay. It can also show some psychic abilities. What shows psychic abilities? When did the psychic abilities start? She always has. A couple of years back. Okay. Okay. So this got triggered during Rahu Dasha basically. Okay, so she had a vision of her father leaving the body. So even before the current dasas, she had some psychic clairvoyant ability always. But you are saying that when she started Reiki, which was in Rahu Dasha, in Rahu Mars or Rahu Moon, basically in Rahu Dasha, it became basically stronger. But she had that ability always. Now, how do you see psychic? How do you see these occult abilities, these psychic abilities, inexplicable abilities? Not necessarily. Saturn Moon is Vairagya. Who is the Karaka for these abilities? Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu are the Karakas for these abilities, these psychic and occult abilities. Right. But apart from materialism and spirituality, when it comes to reaching the unknown, see, the body, it is something that is there before you. The body of your father, it is there before you. But the soul of your father leaving the body, that is something that's not there. That's not physical. So it is basically metaphysical. Things that are not physical, the ability to visualize them is given by Rahu and Ketu because they themselves don't have a body. They are basically, so Rahu and Ketu show reaching for the unknown and going beyond the senses, going beyond the body and experiencing experiencing what is beyond. So Rahu and Ketu are the important planets when it comes to this kind of psychic abilities. In Rashi as well as D20, because Rashi is also they are important. So in both the charts, look at Rahu and Ketu. And what is the house of importance? 8th house. 8th house is the house of occult abilities, psychic abilities, etc. So look at the 8th house, look at Rahu and Ketu. Look at the 8th lord. Okay. Now here, in Rashi, you have Rahu in the 8th house. And in the Vimshamsa also, you have Rahu and Ketu in the 8th house. So this could basically be the reason. Okay.
So the sign should be then accurate.
So time is probably accurate. The Lagna is Gemini, not probably Cancer. Okay. So any other questions? And by the way, for development of this ability, Rahu and Ketu being in the 8th in Rahu being in the 8th in Rashi and Vimshamsa shows this ability always, but Rahu Dasha can accentuate it. It can make it, it can increase the ability. Rahu Dasha, Rahu Ketu Antardasha, for example, or Rahu Mars. They can increase the ability, but Rahu Dasha is basically can be the trigger. So what else do you want to see? Navamsa, yes. Yeah. So Navamsa, marital life. Yeah. How will be the marital life? Right now she is running Jupiter Dasha. And Jupiter is the 12th house of loss or giving up. So how will it be? my feeling is, see, 7th Lord in the 12th house is not really a great combination. But being the 7th Lord, his dasha has started now. It's very unlikely that he will break the marriage, being the 7th Lord. So my feeling is, it is unlikely that the marriage will be broken by Jupiter. But the marriage will basically not take the center stage. It will basically take a back stage. Simply because the 7th Lord is in the 12th house of loss or giving up or compromise. So the marital life will basically not be great. But my feeling is she will not divorce or she will not walk away from her husband. She will stay with him, but the marriage may not be great. Jupiter is the real Atmakaraka, right? Right. But Mars, I have no idea. Unfortunately, I don't know. See, what she meant by Atmakaraka exchange is, look here. Jupiter is at 25 degrees 11 minutes. And Mars is at 25 degrees 3 minutes. So, he is in the same degree. So, the theory being, Jupiter is the Atmakaraka start of the life, and later Mars will take over because he is in the same degree. Right? That is the theory. But I just want to record one thing for the purpose of this recording. When it comes to this particular concept of Atmakaraka replacement, it is likely that we don't understand it correctly. Whatever Sanjay ji has taught, whatever SJC gurus have taught in the past is not really the most accurate or most ultimate knowledge, because even finding the Karakas in the case of two or planets being in the same degree, Parashara actually talked about so many exceptions, rules, so many clauses, subclauses, etc. If you read the corresponding verses of Parashara, actually, it is actually very intriguing. I myself am not fully sure of what Parashara means. There are things that I can't make sense. But I know, one thing I know is, what Sanjay ji taught is not right. What K.N. Rao taught is also not right. The truth is somewhere in between. So, the 7 Karaka scheme, 8 Karaka scheme is also, in my view, a creation basically of us. What Parashara taught is, sometimes you use 7 Karakas, sometimes you use all the 8 planets, and how you use depends on the exact degrees and minutes of planets. So, it's a complicated mechanism actually what Parashara taught. I can literally translate it, but obviously there are some missing links which need to be understood. So, I just want to leave a word of caution that the concept of finding Charkarkas, the concept of Charkarka replacement is suspect. There is something amiss there. So anyway, when it comes to, based on the SJC teachings, when it comes to Charkarka replacement, when exactly that will be triggered in life is up to time. There is another dasha that you can use for that, but I don't want to do that. You can use Kendra dasha, the Kendradi Graha dasha, Atmakaraka Kendradi Graha dasha.
Generally, there will be some turbulence of right.
During that time, there is turbulence in life. There is instability in life. Okay.
Plus, Mercury is on a border.
Yeah.
So,
On what border?
he is in a Rasan.
Okay, that's fine. Mercury is in a Gandanta, right?
Mercury period may be a period which he wants to watch out for.
Right, but Mercury period is not,
Not anymore.
Dasha is not running now. Mercury Antardasha will come much later. Okay, so we will wrap up this chart. So quickly, I'll restart this. So for those who missed who were not here for the conference, those who are listening to the audio, eventually the Durgdasha, the conference audio will be available, and that will contain Durgdasha basically, the calculation and judgment of Durgdasha. But I'll give a quick gist in the next 5 minutes, and we'll do a few examples of Durgdasha. So Durgdasha is found from the 9th house based on the aspects of signs. The first 4 dashas are of the 9th house and the signs aspected by it. Next 4 dashas are of the 10th house and the signs aspected by it. The next 4 dashas are of the 11th house and the signs aspected by it. And to find the signs aspected by any sign, 9th or 10th or 11th, what you do is, you go backward if it is a movable sign, you go forward if it is a fixed sign, you go, if it is a dual sign, then based on odd or even. If it is odd, you go forward. If it is even, you go backward. So that is the rule. Basically, you go to the out of all the signs aspected, you go to the nearest sign. If you are in Aries, you go to Aquarius. If you are in Taurus, you go to Cancer. In the case of dual signs, there will be two signs which are equidistant. In that case, you go to the sign owned by the same planet. If you are in Gemini, you go to Virgo and then Sagittarius, Pisces. Or if you are in Pisces, you go to Sagittarius, which is owned by the same Jupiter, and then go Virgo, Gemini, etc. So you pick the nearest sign or the sign owned by the same planet, and then continue from there. Reckon the other aspected signs in that direction, either forward or backward. So like that you find the aspected signs. So you find 9th house and the 3 signs aspected by it, 10th house and the 3 signs aspected by it, 11th house and the 3 signs aspected by it. And the Dasha years are 7 years for movable signs, 8 years for fixed signs, 9 years for dual signs. Oh, by the way, all this is different from what we have taught earlier. What Sanjay ji taught in Crux of Vedic Astrology, timing of events, what I taught in my book, Vedic Astrology and Integrated Approach, what Robert Koch taught in Spiritual Dimensions in Astrology. That version of Drugdasha is different from what Parashara taught. So, we are going to focus on what Parashara taught for the next class or two. So, Dasha years are like Sthira 7, 8 and 9 for movable, fixed and dual signs. And the Antardashas are also found differently. The way you find Antardasha is, there are 3 aspects. One is the direction, 2 is the seed, the third one is progression. To find the seed, you take the stronger of Dasha sign and 7th house from it. And no need to take the Lord, just Dasha sign and 7, stronger, start from there. And the direction is, if the Dasha sign is odd, go forward. If it is even, go backward. And the progression is, if the Dasha sign is a movable sign, go regularly, like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like that. The sign, next sign, next sign, next sign, and so on. Could be backward or forward based on odd or even, but you go regularly. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. If it is a fixed sign, you go every 6. First 6, then 6 from 6, 6 from 6 from 6, and so on. You find the 6th house from every sign. So if you are starting from Taurus, for example, because Taurus is even, you go backward. So you find the 6th house, and it is a fixed sign, so you use the 6th house principle. So if Taurus Mahadasha is running and Taurus is stronger than Scorpio, then the first Antardasha is Taurus itself, the next one is Sagittarius, the next one is Cancer, next one is Aquarius, next one is Virgo, and so on. Okay? And for dual signs, it's slightly tricky. What? Then the 6 from there, Cancer, and from there, Aquarius, and so on. We are taking every 6 backward. Backward because Taurus is even, every 6 because Taurus is fixed. Okay? Now, for dual signs, we take the first, 4th, 7th and 10th reckoned from the first, 5th and 9th houses. So, we take the first, 4th, 7th and 10th from first house first, and then the first, 4th, 7th and 10th from the 5th house, and then first, 4th, 7th and 10th from 9th house. And all this is either forward or backward based on whether the sign is odd or even. And there is a new version of Jagannathapura which offers this version of Drugdasha, but that is not available yet publicly. Eventually you will get it, but actually, to be honest, this is manually calculatable. You can calculate it very quickly manually, very simple, simply because you don't have to do Narayan Dasha years. It's of Sthira Dasha, 7, 8, 9. So it's very, very simple. Okay, so I want to do some examples. I did a few examples in the class. I could not do all the examples that I was interested in, but I did a few of the examples. For me, Ramakrishna Paramhansa, Jayendra Saraswati, we did. So a few other examples, Sivananda, Aravindo. I want to do a few other examples later, but for today, I want to take any examples of anybody in the class or anybody of interest to you, like your son, your wife, etc. Huh? Your wife, okay? Not your son? Okay, let's do your son first. I'm curious about your son. Oh, he is not class example. He is in family. There is a clear distinction. Okay. Teja? Teja, Anna what? Anna, oh, I thought Anna Prasna or something. I thought Anna Prasna. When I read Anna, I guess it is Anna Pransa. Okay. That's fine. Okay. So we are going to take the chart of a young man who's interested in spirituality and who has left his studies to pursue his spiritual progress. The data is 1988 May 26, 7:27:54 a.m., 5:30 east of GMT, which is basically IST. The place is Secunderabad, India. 78 degrees 30 minutes east, 17 degrees 27 minutes north. Okay. So let us see this chart and let us find the Durgasa and let us judge the Durgasa. So what is the Durgasa running right now, and what is basically the spiritual prognosis of this person, spiritual forecast. If you go to Durgasa, the 9th house is Aquarius. So the first Dasha is Aquarius Dasha for 7 years, from 88 till 8 years, because it's fixed sign. So 88 to 96 is Aquarius Dasha, right? And then out of the signs aspected by Aquarius, which are Aries, Cancer and Libra, the nearest is Aries. So the first aspected sign is Aries. So next Dasha is Aries Dasha. It's a mobile sign. So 7 years. So 96 to 2003. And the next Dasha is Cancer, because we are going forward now from Aquarius to Aries. If you go further forward, it is Cancer, and it is also a mobile sign. So 7 years again. So 2003 to 2010 is Cancer Mahadasha. So he is running Cancer Mahadasha. So during Cancer Mahadasha, the spirituality basically became very intense in Cancer Mahadasha, and he basically left his studies, went to India, tried various things, and he is basically doing his sadhana now, spiritual sadhana. Does it make sense that he would do serious spiritual sadhana in Cancer Mahadasha? Let us see. So what are the principles of judgment? Look at the influences on Cancer. What are the argalas? What are the aspects on Cancer, etc.? And they show the God's light falling on you. 9th house is God's light falling on the person, guiding the spiritual pursuit of the person, guiding the spiritual progress of the person. So this is Guru's guidance, whether there is a good Guru or bad Guru or any Guru at all. So all that you can see. But more importantly, Rashi. This is a Rashi Dasha. We will just use Rashi chart. You can correlate with the Vimshamsa also, but let us just focus on Rashi. That is more than enough. So apart from that, the most important factor that I mentioned is Drugdasha is a progression of the 9th house. So the progress Lagna during a Dasha is the 5th from Drugdasha sign. So suppose somebody is running Cancer Dasha, which means the progress 9th house is in Cancer, which means the progress 1st house is in Scorpio, the 5th from there. If Scorpio is the 1st house, then Cancer will be the 9th house. So if you want Cancer to be the progress 9th house, the progression of Drugdasha, then Scorpio has to be the progress Lagna. So you take Scorpio as Lagna and analyze the chart to see what are the influences on the person's life, based on from the point of view of spiritual life. So to judge the spiritual life of the person, take Scorpio as Lagna. You can analyze the natal chart, but more importantly, I said in the seminar, you analyze the Dasha Pravesha Chakra. Most of these Rashi Dashas are actually meant to be judged based on the Dasha Pravesha Chakra also. So look at the Dasha Pravesha Chakra, see what are the influences. So first let us look at the natal chart. So in the Cancer Dasha, for me, what are the influences on Cancer? Who are aspecting Cancer? Mars, Rahu and Sun are aspecting Cancer, right? So these are the kind of influences which will come, which will be guiding him. What does Sun show? Sun shows, Sun is basically the universal light. Sun is the universal light, and Mars is Bhratragarka here. He can show Guru, and Mars and Rahu shows a Guru who is into tantric practices or tamasic practices, etc., because that is the path of Mars and Rahu. So and also Mars and Rahu showing 9th house means the person may be engaged in very intense sadhana. Mars and Rahu show intensity of the sadhana. So these are the basic things that you can say, but more importantly, take Scorpio as Lagna. And now how is the chart? Taking Scorpio as Lagna, the 8th house of sadhana, it has Venus and Mercury. So 8th Lord is in 8th house. So is it good for sadhana? It is excellent for sadhana. 7th Lord and 8th Lord are together in the 8th house. Is it good? That shows death, right? It is a combination of death. 7th Lord and 8th Lord together in the 8th house. But when it comes to spiritual sadhana, that's a good thing. Basically, it is death-like sadhana. Sadhana which is basically like death. Very intense sadhana. So this is a period of intense sadhana.
There is one case we talked about where you take the 11th as the Lagna and the 5th as the Lagna.
Right.
What is the point?
That is the Antardashas. So in the Antardasha also, Antardasha starts either from the Dasha sign itself or from the 7th from it.
If it starts
So if Antardasha starts from Dasha sign itself, it is still a progression of the 9th house. So Dashas are, you are progressing 9th house and say, during these 9 years, 9th house is in this sign. During these 8 years, 9th house is in this sign. And within that, you want to further progress. Well, within these 9 years, during these 9 months, 9th house is in this sign. During these 9 months, 9th house is kind of like in this sign. So it is basically a further division. So there, if the Dasha, Antardasha started from Dasha sign, then Antardasha is also progression of the 9th house. So you take 5th from there to see the progress Lagna during the Antardasha. But if Antardasha started from the 7th from Dasha sign, then it is not the progression of 9th house. Within that Mahadasha, each Antardasha will track the progression of the 3rd house, which is the 7th from 9th house. So you are progressing the 3rd house. So if the progress 3rd house is in the Antardasha sign, the progress Lagna will be in the 11th from it. So that, so if the Antardasha started from the 7th from Dasha sign, take the 11th from it to see the progress Lagna during the Antardasha. So let us see Antardashas here. Actually, before we go to Antardashas, let us see the entry chart. So when the Cancer Dasha started on May 27, 2003 at 3:49:47 AM, what does the chart show? The Cancer, which is the Dasha sign, contains exalted Jupiter. So the sign that shows God's light falling on the person, that has exalted Jupiter, which is very auspicious. The person's intellect will be thinking correctly and he will get the correct guidance, whether from outside or from inside. The guidance will be excellent guidance. And Lagna, where is the progress Lagna? Scorpio. And what are the influences on it? It contains Ketu in one sign, which means the person will be quite detached. The detachment will increase in the person. Ketu shows detachment. And the 8th Lord and the 12th Lord are conjoined in the 6th house. 8th Lord and 12th Lord are conjoined, which is normally a Viparit Rajoga. Here it shows a lot of sadhana. They are in the 6th house of effort. So he is putting a lot of effort and doing a lot of sadhana. Saturn, the Karaka of austerities, he is in the 8th house. So he also shows a lot of sadhana. So basically whatever is shown in the natal chart is being accentuated to a little extent. But we don't really detect any great level of sadhana. We don't detect any great level of achievement like fulfillment of the sadhana. That is very unlikely. We don't even detect moksha, being a Jivan Mukta or something like that. Basically the pinnacle of the sadhana is definitely not in this dasha. Let us look at the next Antardasha. Next dasha, sorry. The next dasha will be after Cancer will come Libra, right? So what will, pardon me? Libra, because we are looking at aspects on Aquarius. So Libra dasha will run from May 26, 2010 till May 26, 2017. How is this dasha? In the Libra dasha, the Antardasha will be, the progress Lagna will be Aquarius. So taking Aquarius as Lagna, Moon is in the 8th house. Moon is in Manakarka Sthana, he is in the 8th house. Mars and Rahu are in Lagna. What does it mean? Mars and Rahu. So he will be engaged in very intense sadhanas. Mars and Rahu in Lagna show intensity in whatever he is doing. And this basically Dasha tracks his spiritual pursuit. So Mars and Rahu shows very intense pursuit, very intense sadhana. And how is the fifth house? How are Mercury and Venus? Fifth lord and ninth lord are conjoined in the fifth house. The mantra sthana, fifth house, contains mantra lord as well as dharma lord, bhagya lord. So he will be engaged in a lot of dharma karyas, and also when the fifth and ninth houses are so strong, when there is such a nice Rajayoga, it shows some accomplishment. The ninth lord Venus, fourth and from Aquarius, because that is the Lagna, progress Lagna. The fourth and fifth, ninth lord Venus joins the fifth lord Mercury. Both of them are friends, and they are in friendly house. One of them is in one sign, one of them is in friendly sign. So he will be. This is a time when the blessings will basically come. The Purva Punya, fifth house of Purva Punya has such a nice Rajayoga. Pardon me? Why Mars becomes Yogarka? No. Mars
There is a fourth and ninth lord, right?
no, Venus becomes Yogarka, fourth and ninth lord.
Venus becomes Yogarka.
Right. Venus is Yogarka. So, Mercury and Venus combination shows some auspicious thing happening as a result of the Purva Punya in this particular Mahadasha. Possibly in Gemini Antardasha, which is 2011-2012. Okay. Now let us look at the Dasha Praveshi Chakra. This Dasha starts on 2010 May 26 at 10:52:22 p.m. So if you look at this chart, now taking Aquarius as Lagna, the 8th house has Saturn, so continuous serious sadhana, austerities and sadhana. And Venus, the Yogarka, he is with Ketu here. Earlier he was with Mercury, now he is with Ketu. So the 9th lord and 10th lord are together in the 5th house, giving Dharma Karmadpati Yoga. So there is a clear Rajoga in the 5th house of Purva Punya, both the ways, based on Dasha Pravesha as well as natal chart. Saturn aspecting Venus and Ketu, yes. Or rather, Venus and Ketu aspecting Saturn in the 8th house. It shows Tapasvi Yoga. Venus and Ketu have aspect on Saturn, so it shows Tapasvi Yoga. So he does more sincere, more serious sadhana compared to now, after 2010. And also there will be some fruits as a result of it.
You didn't see the fruits, no?
I am saying 5th house basically. 5th house is the 7th from 11th.
So don't we see the
You can look at 11th house also, but I am just looking at the based on the fact that 5th house has such a powerful Rajoga, so Purva Punya has to come to the fore in the pursuit of spiritual unity, spiritual union with God. Some result of the Purva Punya is coming to the fore, which means some good will happen.
50 is always on the axis of 5 and 11.
Yeah, right. So Purva Punya is basically the other aspect of the fulfillment of the desire. Okay, now what are the Antardashas running right now? Just as an exercise, the Antardasha running right now. Now, how do we find Antardashas? Find the stronger of Cancer and Capricorn. Capricorn is stronger. Why is it stronger? Based on the rules. You can do all the analysis later. But based on the rules, Capricorn is stronger. So start from there. It is a mobile sign, so use 1, 2, 3, 4 progression, regular Brahma progression, and it is an even sign, so go backwards. So Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, and so on. These are the Antardashas. Right? So, what is the Antardasha running right now? The Antardasha running right now is Gemini Antardasha. What are the results that we can expect in the Gemini Antardasha? Take the 11th from Gemini. Right? Why 11th? Because Antardasha started from the 7th from Dasha sign. So if you take the 11th from the Antardasha sign, that will be the progress Lagna.
Because for Cancer it is
Cancer is the Mahadasha, but Antardasha started from Capricorn.
so you take the
So, right now, the Antardasha running right now is basically during this Antardasha, the progress Lagna is Aries. So, Aries being the progress Lagna means Lagna has Jupiter in it, the ninth lord Jupiter. So, ninth basically means Guru. Being in Lagna means some Guru or Guru-like figure basically is guiding him. Whether he knows it or doesn't know it, whether he sees it or doesn't see, there is a clear blessing of some very wise person or wise persons guiding him. So this is a period when he can do anything basically, nothing will harm him. He is protected basically, there is a protection during this period. And also Jupiter being in Lagna means he himself will be wiser compared to the previous or next Antardasha. This is a period when some wisdom will start in him. This is a period of some wisdom. But how is the sadhana? If you look at the 8th house, the 8th lord is in Badhakasthana. The 8th lord of sadhana is in Badhakasthana with Rahu. So is he doing excellent sadhana now? Well, he is doing some Ugra sadhana because the 8th house is an Ugra Rasi, Scorpio, and its Lord Mars is in Aquarius with Rahu. But the thing is, he is in Badhakasthana. The Lagna Lord as well as the 8th Lord is in Badhakasthana. So some serious sadhana that he is doing may be faulty also. Badhakasthana shows some faults. So he may be doing some faulty sadhana also during this time. But we don't really see any serious sadhana. 8th house doesn't have any strong combinations. How about the next Antardasha? Actually, let us see the previous Antardasha. During the previous Antardasha, November 27 to June 27, basically the previous 7 months, Cancer is the Lagna. So taking Taurus as, Cancer is the Dasha sign, Antardasha sign. So taking Taurus as Lagna, Sun is in Lagna, an inimical sign. Second house is Mercury and Venus, but Saturn is in the 8th house. So it shows actually Saturn in the 8th house shows following more austerities. Compared to now, the previous period shows more austerities, etc. And if you look at the Dasha Pravesha Chakra, Antardasha Pravesha Chakra, if you look at Taurus as Lagna, in the Antardasha Pravesha Chakra, what is the sign that is standing out? 10th house has Moon and Rahu combination and Scorpio has 4 planets, so 7th house. 10th house shows activities in society, activities with others, and 7th house shows in relationships or dealing with others. Taurus, because Cancer Antardasha is being judged. During Cancer Antardasha, Taurus is the Lagna. Same as in natal chart. So 7th house being strong means during this period he will be interacting with people. So he is moving with people. So during this period, I believe he was with a.
This is Cancer. In this chart, it is starting from the same point. So it is.
No. It is not starting from the same. It started from Capricorn and then Cancer Sun came.
Oh, it is Cancer.
Okay. So 7th house and 10th house are strong. So some activities in the society are strong because of Moon and Rahu, and more importantly, 7th house is very strong. So he is basically engaged in dealing with other people. So he is basically whatever sadhana he is doing, he is with basically more company during this period. More than the lonely sadhana, during this period he is doing sadhana in a mutt or in a pitham or with some other friends who are disciples of a guru who are joining him, etc. So this is a period when 7th house is really dominating. Whereas if you look at the current period, let's go back to the Gemini. We didn't look at the Antardasha Pravesh Chakra. So in Antardasha Pravesh Chakra, what will be the Lagna? Lagna is Aries. Aries has Mars in it. So Mars in Aries Lagna. So he is very stubborn during this period, very determined during this period as far as spiritual sadhana is concerned. And 8th house contains Jupiter and Moon. So so Gargesari Yoga in the 8th house. So he is actually doing some good sadhanas during this period also. But this period, unlike the last period, the 7th house being strong, etc., is not really there. If you ask, the 4th and 8th houses, the Moksha Trikonas are stronger here. The 4th house of guidance, Sukha, etc., comfort basically. 4th house is the house of comfort in spiritual sadhana, and 8th house is the house of sadhana itself. So these are the stronger houses compared to the 7th house in the previous Antardasha. So during this period, which is from this June, from the previous June, from the June a few months back till next January, he is basically he is doing some sadhana, but not necessarily with a big group during this period. But he is very determined during this period. How is the next period? Taurus Antardasha. In the Taurus, Pisces will become Lagna, right? Let us look at the Antardasha Pravesh Chakra. If you look at Pisces as Lagna, the 6th house is really strong. And what is the 6th house? 6th house, what does it show? Obstacles, enemies, etc. are overcoming them. So during the next year, there may be some obstacles, some obstacles, etc. in his path, in his spiritual path, but he will overcome them. More importantly, 6th house shows Siddhi. This is the 11th from 8th. 6th house is the 11th house from the 8th house. 8th house is sadhana, and 6th house is the 8th house. If you take the 11th from there, the 6th house will be the 11th from 8th house, right?
11th from you are taking.
See, forget the Lagna here. In general, 6th house is the 11th from 8th.
Yeah, that is okay.
So 6th house is good for seeing siddhis, etc. or some fulfillment of the sadhana, some result from the sadhana.
Losing track of
Now Lagna will come there. In the Taurus Antardasha, we are still in the Cancer Mahadasha, where Antardasha started from the 7th house from it. So 11th from Antardasha sign will be the Lagna, progress Lagna, the Antardasha Lagna. So it is in Pisces, the 11th from Taurus, in the Taurus Antardasha. So from Pisces, the 6th house is very strong, Moon with Saturn and Ketu. So during this period, during these 7 months, during next January to August, it is likely that there will be some fulfillment of the desire, like some visions, etc. Some psychic visions of the goddess, some messages, etc. are very likely. So there will be some results from the sadhana during the next Antardasha. But the thing is, based on Dasha perspective, that will be very minimal. Based on the Dasha perspective, we said 2010 to 2017 is the period. How is we looked at Antardasha Pravesh also. Yeah, we did. How about the Pratyantardashas in it? Let us say, how about Gemini Antardasha? In the Gemini Antardasha, now here also the Antardashas are starting from the 7th from Dasha sign. So you should take the 11th from the Dasha sign, right? So in Gemini, you take this as the Aries as the Lagna. If you take Aries itself, the first Antardasha itself, this will be the Antardasha. Actually, let us not make any precise predictions. But the thing is, my feeling is, next year will be very important for him. Next year he will start seeing some results of his sadhana next year, and especially 2010 to 2017 will be a very important period for him. He will see the results of his sadhana. How about the next period, Pisces? How is Pisces for him? Pisces. In the Pisces Dasha, the progress Lagna is in Seshu's turn. In Pisces Dasha, where will be the progress Lagna?
This is Dasha is will be the 5th from there, so Sagittarius.
Right.
No, from Pisces it will be Cancer.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. But I don't know where you took it from.
Cancer.
Nah, it's not even from Cancer.
Not even Cancer.
It's from
I don't know.
Leo. But the final answer is right, Cancer. So if you take Cancer as Lagna, how is the chart? Very auspicious. Because Jupiter is in the 10th house, showing 9th Lord Jupiter is in the 10th house, showing some dharmic karma in the society, some big karma in the society. And the 8th house is Mars and Rahu, so extremely intense sadhana. More importantly, Mercury and Venus in the 12th house, 4th and 12th Lord in the 12th house, 4th house of direction, comfort, and 12th house of giving up, moksha, liberation. So they are in the 12th house. If you remember the charts that we have seen, example charts we have seen like Arvinda, etc., 12th house is the important chart for getting detachment, the real detachment. 12th house basically shows giving up, shedding things. So it can be sannyasa, basically giving up your clothes, your life as people normally live it, or more than bahya sannyasa, the antar sannyasa, the sannyasa at the mental level, which is you give up the fruits of whatever you do. You do things. It seems to people around you as though you are very passionate about what you are doing. You are intense in what you are doing, but it's just a pretense not in a negative sense, but you do whatever you do without really being attached to it. At the end of doing it, whatever happens, you don't really give a damn, you don't care at all. So that kind of sannyasa, you are basically giving up the sense of I am doing things, you give up that. So when the ego is give up, when the sense of I-ness is give up, when the sense of ownership over karma, ownership over your actions is given up, the kartrutva bhava tyaga, kartrutva bhava sannyasa, when that comes, that is the real goal of all sannyasa. Just wearing orange robes and then leaving wife and children and going into forest is just it's just symbolic. You are trying, the real sannyasa which gives you moksha is the one that I mentioned now, kartrutva bhava. Even if you are living with a wife and children, even if you are living amid people, even if you are doing a job, even if you are doing so many activities, still if you are not touched by those, then you are real mukta, real jivan mukta. Then you have qualified for moksha.
So then Ketu has to be associated.
Well, Ketu has Argala, but one second, let's not jump too ahead. I'm not saying he will get moksha or whatever, but what I'm saying is, right, whether Ketu is involved or not, if the 12th house is strong, that itself is capable of either giving sannyasa or giving some progress towards moksha. 12th house is a very important house in progress towards moksha. So when the 12th house is very strong from the dasha lagna, during that period you will notice that the person will either become a sannyasi or he will do the sannyasa of the type that I mentioned. So he will mature basically. So earlier in the previous dasha I said there will be some good fruits of the result, maybe he will get some siddhis, but still that's not the end goal, because if you get a siddhi, suppose you say something and it comes true, or you can create things out of thin air, or such kind of siddhis you get, or whenever you want, suppose a particular goddess, a particular Bhairavi comes and tells you certain things, so you can basically give predictions, let us say just hypothetically. All those kind of siddhis are good. They come only because so many people do sadhana, they all don't get them. You got it because of some purva punya, some God wants to give you some blessing. But the thing is, if you think that I have this ability, it becomes a bondage. 12th house is the house where you basically shun all your bondages. So 12th house has to be strong in order to make real progress towards moksha, in order to basically show real maturity. And here if you take Cancer as Lagna, 8th house and 12th house are really dominating. There are two benefic planets in the 12th house, and Ketu has Argala on them, like you correctly said. Jupiter and Ketu both have Argala on them. So Mercury and Venus being in 12th house, and especially 12th Lord himself in the 12th house. So my feeling is, your son, he will make lot of progress in the next few years. He will do lot of sadhana. He will be attracted to so many mantras, so many devatas. He is a mercurial person. He will not be, instead of achieving fully with one, he will try, his energy will be dispersed, and still he will be achieving a little bit here and there. But the thing is, real maturity will come after 2017. The real maturity and unless that real sannyasa comes, then also he may be doing what he is doing now, but he will be at peace. The heart will be at peace. Right now his heart is basically vacillating so much. It is basically a little troubled. But it is her plan. That is what she wants him to do right now. So she basically intentionally put him in the state right now. But after 2017, I think he will find more peace, and also he will get the real maturity. Until then he is a kid. Then he will be more mature. And after 2017. And if you look at the Pravesh Chakra, the Dasha Pravesh Chakra, How is the Dasha Pravesh Chakra? If you look at the Cancer, the 8th house of sadhana has Ketu in it. So there is Ketu and Rahu connection. And again the the Lagna Lord, the second Lord and Yokaraka Mars are conjoining in the 11th house. The Lagna Lord Moon, the Yokaraka Mars and Sun, they are all conjoining in the 11th house. Though it's a Badhakasthana, it is also the house of fulfillment of desires. So his desires will be fulfilled during this time. So this is a period of real achievement. But the thing is the strength of the 12th house that we mentioned, that we saw in the natal chart, that's not being confirmed in the Dasha Pravesh Chakra. So there will be some progress towards moksha, but still it may not be complete even in this period. If Dasha Pravesha and natal chart both basically are dominating, then that is the real period. Let us leave it here. So he will make lot of progress in the next 7 years and even after that. Any other chart you want to see? Okay.
I didn't spend too much time, but I looked at next 1 year.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So the data is October 4, 1966, 10:20 a.m. Again Secunderabad, India. 78 degrees 30 minutes east, 70 degrees 27 minutes north. Okay. We'll see as many charts as you want. Next class we'll do just the examples. First I'll do all the charts that you guys want to see, then I'll do some standard charts. Okay. So this person, let's see the Durgdasha. Scorpio is the Lagna. The Durgdasha starts from Cancer, Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio, then Leo, Libra, Capricorn, Aries. This is the sequence. And let us see Leo Dasha. How is Leo Dasha? In Leo Dasha, Sagittarius becomes the Lagna. And how do you see? What are the influences? If you take Sagittarius as the Lagna, what are the influences? Lagna Lord, where is he? Lagna Lord is in 8th house. So does it show any... he is Jupiter, yes, he is exalted Jupiter. So can it show spiritual sadhana, occult experiences, etc. during this period? Yes. And how is the Pravesha Chakra? How is the Dasha Pravesha Chakra? Look at the Dasha Pravesha Chakra. If you look at the Dasha Pravesha Chakra, taking Sagittarius as Lagna, what are the combinations that really stand out? First of all, there is Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga. 9th and 10th Lord are together. 7th and 10th Lord is joining 9th Lord in the 10th house. So there are more social activities. Basically being with other people, doing spiritual sadhana along with other people, that basically becomes more. Basically organized spiritual practice. That becomes more because of the 10th house strength and Mercury Sun. So that is one thing. There is another important thing. What is the other thing? The 12th house is very strong. Even though the planets in question are enemies, the 6th and 12th Lord are in the 12th house. The 6th Lord of Siddhi and the 12th Lord of Moksha are together in the 12th house of Moksha. So, is this a period when the 12th Lord is in the 12th itself, and of course Ketu owns the sign. It is a sign owned by Ketu. So, you can't say the person gets Moksha, but the thing is the person makes considerable progress towards Moksha during this period. How is the current period? How is the current period for the person? It is Libra. In the Libra period, Aquarius is the Lagna. In the Libra period, Aquarius is the Lagna. How are things in the Aquarius? Taking Aquarius as the Lagna. First let us see natal chart. In the natal chart, the Lagna Lord, Saturn is in the 2nd house The 8th and 9th lord, there is a parivartana. And Ketu is in the 9th house. What can you say?
Sadhana will progress in life because of it.
Basically 8th and 9th are being really strengthened. And 8th house is the house of sadhana and 9th house is the house of guidance, guru, etc. So 8th and 9th being strong. But the thing is, look at the Dasha Pravesh Chakra. How is Dasha Pravesh Chakra here? If you look at Aquarius as Lagna, the 8th is extremely strong. Moon, Sun, Mercury, Rahu. Moon and Sun are together in the 8th house. And they are eclipsed by Rahu and Ketu. This is an excellent period. This is an excellent period. In a few examples that I have seen, I mean, see, because we use Drugdasha just based on Rasi chart, you can't make categorical predictions based on it. It just gives you guideline. The exact intensity and degree of the results is tough to predict just based on Drugdasha. But in the examples where I know examples of people who actually reach Samadhi, who reach Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In those examples, in the Dasha Pravesh Chakra, actually I found the influence, I found Sun and Moon either together or in opposite signs with Rahu and Ketu. So Sun and Moon being hammered by Rahu and Ketu is conducive to a Samadhi, basically going beyond the mind, losing the mind. So it is very conducive to that. So because that happens on the 8th house axis, the current Dasha that is running until 2012 is actually very auspicious for doing further sadhana. But the thing is, the 9th and 8th lord conjunction, even though we said it's good, actually it's a bad combination also. It shows religiousness. 9th house is the house of the light and the religion, and when the 12th lord from it is occupying it and there is a parivartana, it can actually show giving up of the light, losing the light, not really taking advantage of the light. So it shows there is a combination in the natal chart which shows some loss of focus in the religious practice. But when the correct Antardasha comes, that can be corrected. This Dasha actually can result in the highest experiences, much higher experiences than what Venus and Mars in the 12th house from the in the previous Dasha Lagna gave. The Moon, Sun, along with who else? Rahu, Ketu, and somebody else was there. Who was he? There was somebody else. No, not this one. Yeah, Mercury, the 8th lord himself. So Moon and Sun with the 8th lord Rahu and Ketu in the 8th house. This combination can be taken full advantage of. So my feeling is there is still some, this person's spiritual pursuit is not finished yet. There is, this is what I told the person earlier, there is more, there is much more to come. But for that the fresh effort has to start. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, we'll see some more Drugdasha examples in the next class. So with that we will end for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.